Hey everyone, what's up? My name is Brooklyn. I am the CEO and founder of the Life on Purpose project. We are a team of digital marketers that focuses on living an independent and usually nomadic lifestyle. With that, being in the digital marketing industry, I wanted to come on and share some of my team's top tips for marketing to your niche audience. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share, and I'm just going to take you through what we do, basically. All right, gonna get this up for you. Perfect. So how to market for your niche audience. This is a mini workshop in defining your target audience and how to create branded content for them in your mind. Cool. So with that, before we dive in, I want to talk about why it's important to put in the work for marketing to your niche audience before you actually start running ads, trying to boost engagement, whether that's paid or organic. Um, and the reason behind that is just that people don't like what they don't like, right? You could be the cutest puppy dog in the world, but there are still people that like cats more, and that's okay. So if you get out there and you haven't defined your niche audience, you haven't figured out who your target is and what your brand is about, and then you start running ads trying to promote organically, you're kind of all over the board. You're promoting to a huge pool of people that may or may not like what you have to do in your business. And that's a huge waste of time and money, which is why it's super important in the very beginning of your business, when you do a rebrand, before you start putting a lot of effort into marketing, is to figure out the important steps with that. And those two important steps before you dive in are defining your brand and defining your audience. This is the base layer that's going to help us build a really effective marketing strategy. So if you don't know where to start with marketing your online business, let's just talk about what marketing is. So marketing is a blanket term that covers how you portray your business to the world. This includes both paid advertising and organic growth. Essentially, anything you're putting out there in regards to your business, whether that's online or in the tangible world, it's marketing. Cool? So with that, our two key points, defining your brand and defining your audience. What are they? What does that mean? So first, defining your brand. Who are you and where do you fit into your field? What exactly do you offer your customers and your viewers? And then defining your audience is essentially just understanding your target customer, right? The people that you want to sell to or want to work with. Those are the people that you want to be posting for, running ads for, and sharing for. And we're going to dive into the logistics of this in just a little bit. So let's start with defining your brand. Who are you and where do you fit in your field? What do you even offer your customer, right? So with that, this is more than your job title, and this is more than your product. These are both great places to start. If your job title is a poet, that's one aspect of who you are, but that doesn't actually tell the consumer or the viewer very much about you. It's just the tip of the iceberg. So on that note, if your job title is a poet, you could write love poetry, or you could be writing recovery poetry. If you go one step deeper, you could write sad love poetry, or you could write happy love poetry. They really are pandering to two totally different audiences. If you are writing the happiest love poetry ever, your audience is not women or men who have just gone through a breakup, right? It's probably people in happy, loving relationships. So knowing that about your brand is going to help you figure out who your audience is. So you want to be really specific with who you are more than just a title. And just the same, this is more than just your product. You're not just a poet that writes poetry. That's so cardboard, just very boring. There's no emotional attachment or draw for me as a consumer to dive deeper into who you are. If it's just like, I'm a poet, I write poetry. No shiz, right? And it being more than your product, telling your audience what you're selling is necessary to make those sales, right? It's obviously the first step. But just saying you sell cookies, for example, doesn't make anyone want to buy your cookies. I could go to any grocery store, I could bake them at home. There's so many different ways that I could have cookies that actually fit the want or the desire that I have for the type of cookie that I'm interested in, right? So you have to tell people you sell those cookies to make the sale, but then you have to create an emotional bond with them and your product before a sale is going to close. And an example of this would be vegan gluten-free cookies. So instead of just like pandering to the whole world that likes cookies, the way that I like cookies is probably totally different than the next person. And so with that, my time, my money as a marketer is going to be better spent when I am focusing on my niche audience. So vegan gluten-free cookies. I'm selling and marketing cookies to a very specific group of people, and that is going to be more successful. Let me see if I can go forward. Awesome. So with that, um, what is a brand, right? Now that we know that it is more than our product and it is more than just our job title, what is like a formula we can dive into for that? And so with that, a brand equals who you are plus what you do, plus, and the important part, what audience needs you are here to satisfy. At the end of the day, social media, the online world, it's kind of a selfish place. And I don't mean this in a bad way. I don't mean that like we're posting from an ego-based place. I just mean that as a consumer, you're using it for ego-based reasons, and that's fine. I don't want to just be on social media to scroll. The reason that I'm on there, the people I follow are because they're doing something for me. Maybe they're bringing me great recipes, they're bringing me yoga class sequences or money mindset, business tips, or travel inspiration. The people that I follow, it's not just like this person's named Bob and I'm going to follow Bob just for the hell of it. No one does that. The reason you're following and interacting with the people you do on social channels is because of what they bring to the table for you. So as a marketer, you want to reverse psychology that, knowing that your audience is only going to stick around in so long as what you can offer to them is valuable, right? So your brand really is who you are plus what you do. And then lastly, what audience needs you're here to satisfy. And so a couple questions to define these things that are really helpful just to get out a pen and paper and write these down are one, who are you? How would you describe yourself, first of all? So just whatever comes to mind, either as an influencer, a brand manager, a business owner, whatever you are, however this applies to you, just who are you? And giving yourself a short couple sentence bio, who you think you are, how you think you're getting across. And then second, you want to really cross-examine yourself and say, how would you describe your brand if you were a stranger viewing for the first time? So if you didn't know yourself and you clicked on your Instagram page, your Facebook, your website, an advertisement that you've been running, whatever it is, would you, as a viewer that has no familiarity with this brand, know what you want them to know? Do those two little chunks of words you're writing down match or intersect? And if not, that's okay. That just gives you a clear message of figuring out where you want to, get to work and workshop on that. Second, what do you do? So what do you sell and offer? Like writing that down, writing down your product. If you're an influencer, writing down the kinds of products you want to work with or the companies you want to share about. And then kind of giving yourself this title, what would you call yourself? And it's okay to give yourself a title. Titles are never black and white, but if you had to give yourself one, what is it? And then again, cross-examination time. Would a new client easily see these things about you as well? A stranger coming in, viewing for the first time, would they be like, yeah, Brittany is a bikini influencer. Yes, Steven does, a stock trade business, right? And so making sure that your viewer, this pair of fresh eyes, understands what you want them to understand as well. And then lastly, the most important one, what audience needs do you satisfy? And with this, you want to think of your ideal audience, AKA your customer, right? So what do they need? Why would a customer come to you? So writing out essentially what you can offer them. And then with this, taking into mind an example, are you supporting skincare? Maybe you are a skincare brand or a skincare CEO. And if so, what kind of skincare are you invested in and sharing with your audience? Do you smooth wrinkles or do you fight acne? And if it's both of those things, is that wise? Like, again, cross-examining yourself, asking yourself if it's wise to market both wrinkle smoothing creams and acne creams. Because when we generalize and we think about the market in a generalized point of view, which you have to as a marketer running ads and marketing businesses for yourself or for others, we have to generalize the population. And generally speaking, the demographic that has wrinkles or is starting to gain wrinkles and wants to smooth them, and the demographic that is fighting acne are two pretty separate demographics. Generally, you see young adults and teenagers in the acne fighting region, and you see, people that are closer to middle age starting to fight and combat their wrinkles, right? And so if you're marketing both, it's two very separate audiences, and you want to ask yourself where you as an individual brand are best suited to start marketing right now. If both of these demographics, the wrinkle demographic and the acne demographic, could come to your page and see their ideal product there, so just erasing the product across the board, and as an individual they would come and they want a wrinkle cream and they see your wrinkle cream brand, or they come and they want acne cream and they see your acne cream brand, which audience is going to like your brand more? The way that you've developed your company, the way that you've developed your materials thus far, your marketing, who you are as an individual, your representatives, the voices behind your team. Personally, I'm in my early 20s, and so if I were to have a skincare brand, I would probably want to focus on an acne fighting brand. I go through acne as well, and adult acne. I've had experience with it. I'm in the same age demographic as others that are likely fighting this. And so, as an individual and a brand CEO, if I were to market acne cream, it would probably land more authentically with the audience that wants to fight their acne versus someone in their early 20s marketing a wrinkle fighting cream or wrinkle smoothing cream. Those that have wrinkles are probably going to look at me and say, what do you know about wrinkles? You're still in your 20s, right? Makes sense? So you want to know what your ideal audience needs from you, and then you want to market to them. So my ideal audience, young adult, usually women, they're probably fighting acne as well. And so that's going to be my ideal audience, and it's going to give me more success marketing a brand than it would if I were to market and pander to older people, older than me. Cool. So next, questions to ask yourself when building or redefining your brand, right? If you're building for the ground up, or maybe you already have a successful or semi-successful brand and you just want to get really clear on it and you want to redefine or rebrand, right? So something to keep in mind about a brand, knowing that it's more than your product, it's more than your title, and we have that little equation that will tell you how to create your brand and what your brand is. Just knowing, blanket across the board, a great definition of that is that a brand is everything that people say, feel, and think about you when you're not in the room. A brand is a reputation, right? So we can be hopeful, we can look at our own business, website, social media, and be like, yeah, like I'm so proud of myself. And it's great to feel proud about yourself, but being completely transparent and cross-examining like you were a pair of fresh eyes is going to get you the most success in the end. And really say, what do people say and feel about me when I'm not in the room, right? Your brand is your reputation. So with that, a couple questions to ask yourself to just dive deeper into your personal brand, whatever it might be, is first, what are your brand values? Some examples of this might be that you are really against plastic waste and you see that as a big issue in the world and you do not want to contribute to that as a business owner or an influencer. So your brand is all about sustainability and recycling, right? Maybe you recognize injustices against different sexes or minorities, and your values are just equality and human rights. And so you don't want to support, different companies that maybe have like slave labor, big factory labor in third world countries, things that like you don't want to vote for with your dollar. You want to resonate that across your brand because your audience probably feels the same way. And then when you can market to an audience about what you feel, you're going to attract an audience that feels the same. And again, that's going to create that emotional bond that's going to successfully close sales, right? Next is, what is your brand personality? Like, how do you want to come across? There are lots of different brands out there in the world, and they're all going to have different personalities. So is your personality like stern? Are you funny, like a meme account? Do you want to like uplift others? You're inspirational. How do you want to come across? And when I personally asked myself this, I wanted to come across as like a friend. I wanted to come across as funny, relatable, and transparent. And that was my goal as an individual and a business owner, that I wanted people to see themselves in me and know that I'm approachable and that what I have, I can help them receive as well, right? So when I took a look at that, I kind of realized that my own personal social media was maybe less funny than I wanted it to be. I wanted to portray more of my comedy and my individuality and my relatability. And I was maybe hammering too hard from like the inspirational or business standpoint. And so that was a reality check for myself. I wanted to incorporate more of that approachability, and that's been my personal homework. And then lastly, tying back in with that definition of a brand, what do you want people to know, think, and feel about your brand? So if a brand is what people say, feel, and think when you're not in the room, what do you want that to be, right? What is the ideal for that? And writing those things down as well. And again, cross-examine once you've written these things out. It never hurts. It's always beneficial. Just being honest with yourself currently at this point in time, how well is your content portraying these brand concepts? Your content is your website, your marketing materials, your social media, everything that you create related to your business or your personal brand. How well is everything that you've written above actually portraying itself, right? And then after you cross examine, what about your brand do you need to communicate better? Hammering back to my personal homework, I realized that I was maybe not so funny and maybe not as approachable as I wanted to be. I was coming across too businessy, which isn't bad if that's your goal, but that wasn't my goal. And so that's what my cross examination showed for me. Moving forward, I just want to talk about why branding is important. Branding is probably the most important part of marketing because, like we said at the beginning, people are always gonna like cats, even if you're the cutest puppy ever. So you want to figure out what your brand is so you stop running ads to cats, right? Just an example. So first, individuals make purchasing decisions based on their feelings, right? Second, branding helps individuals make decisions in a crowded marketplace. An example of this are two really lovely poets, Yana Robinson and Rupi Kaur. I don't know if you guys like poetry, but I do, so this felt like a good example. These are two modern, young adult women that are incredible poets, but they come from different socioeconomic backgrounds and their writing has different contexts, right? When I think of Rupi Kaur's poetry, I think of poetry that talks on healing, recovery, trauma, and it really hammers into a minority's point of view, just of like life, relationships, and growth. Whereas Yana's poetry is equally beautiful, but I feel like her brand is more like, I'm a badass, and you are a badass too. And she's encouraging, this new generation of fierce women that are unapologetic. Both of these poets are empowering and they're wonderful to read, and they each have great, great success in the field. But they also have fairly different voices, and that is because they have branded themselves differently. So if you're looking for one thing, you might go with this poet. If you're looking for another, you might go with the other. Doesn't mean you can't enjoy both, but at the end of the day, what you need is what you need, and how they've branded themselves is what gets their point across. With that, individuals feel good about supporting brands that align with them, and branding encourages emotional connection, building a deeper client lead relationship, which creates purchase security. So specifically, if you're a business or a business owner, you want to have that deep client lead relationship with your business so that you have that purchase security. That means that someone isn't just liking your Instagram feed or just liking your product, they're enjoying both. They feel like they have a relationship with you and that you are a trustworthy brand, which long term is going to make people feel good and safe about investing their money with you or your products. And then one of the really big points is that branding allows customers to be advocates and storytellers. People love to talk about their experiences. That's why, websites like Yelp and TripAdvisor are so huge because people love to review and they love to share their experience. So an example of this would be Coors Beer, a very, very successful beer company. That doesn't have any special story, but is massive. I'm sure there's a special story somewhere in there, but they're kind of just known because of their size versus a small local family business craft brew. When you think about it, which one could you talk about longer in a conversation with your friend that you're introducing it to? If you're just like, hey, want a Coors beer? They're going to be like, sure. If you're like, hey, do you want one of these craft brews? It's from the brewery in my hometown and it's a father-son business. That is going to spark a conversation and someone's going to go, no way, how did that start? Tell me about it. And you're going to be able to talk a little bit more about something that has a story behind it. And branding is a story, it's your reputation. And then lastly, kind of summing it all up, a great brand enhances the customer's purchasing experience. If they can talk about it, if they can feel aligned with it, and if they can make their purchasing decision based off of their feelings, it's just going to enhance that whole experience, and it's going to make your brand last longer in their life, and possibly their bank account, which is awesome if you are a business. Cool. And so now that we've talked about the importance of defining your brand, let's also talk about defining your audience. So this is that other building block for successful marketing to your niche audience. You have to define your brand first, and then you want to define your audience, because if you're marketing to one group of people, but your brand fits a totally different, there's not an intersection there and you're not going to be successful. So again, understanding your target customer is the biggest key to actually defining your audience, because creating content for your target customer will draw in an entire audience that fits the bill. At the end of the day, if you are a business or an influencer and you have a social media account, wouldn't it be great if all 20,000 followers, or even 200, doesn't have to be a huge number, if all 200 followers were people that are your target client? They are people that are already likely to invest in your company or brand. That makes your marketing, your organic marketing online, so much more effective, right? So essentially, we want to make sure our audience is our customer. And there you have it. Audience equals customer. Be it the audience of a paid advertisement or the audience of your social media feed, business will be a lot easier when your audience is your customer. Personally speaking, I developed a lot of my audience before I developed my business. And so I would say at the current time, probably only 30% of my audience is actually likely to become a customer. Something I've been actively working to shift and change. And we've seen the scales start to tip, which is really exciting, but it's going to take some growth, right? So a good example of this is niche focusing. So that's definitely a good one to take a note on. Niche focusing. If you're trying to sell a specific product for curly hair, time and money would be wasted posting about or running ads for straight hair products, right? Like, why would you run an ad or post about something that you don't do or you don't specialize in? So you want to really focus on your niche, and you might lose some followers, you might lose some audience at first, but then the scales are going to right themselves and you're going to attract in future clients and audience and viewers that do fit that bill. So a good thing to keep in mind when you're trying to figure out your audience and figure out how to market to them is, again, what does your audience want from you? If your target customer has a specific need or want, your content should always cater to that first. So if you are a skincare brand and you only ever show photos of beautiful models with perfect skin, it's not going to land with your audience long term. They might be excited about it at first, wowed by this beautiful skin, but if your ideal client is those that have skin problems and they want to fix their skin problems, then that means your audience is the same, your goal audience is the same. And so again, if your brand's purpose is skincare, but it's failing to show how it can work for customers, it's not relatable. Fancy skin, again, it's going to impress people for a minute, but they want to witness results. And so a really good example of this is the skincare company Curology. Never personally tried it, so I cannot speak to its actual benefits or effects. It seems great, but from a marketing standpoint and as a marketing professional, their marketing is on point. I see ads for Curology all the time, and it is always videos or photos of before and after. It's people talking to the camera about where their skin was at, how their skin was, and then like day 30, here I am, what I've used, and their skin looks totally different. And that is incredibly impactful because you're showing how your product can actually benefit your audience. So again, just keeping in mind what your audience, aka ideal customer, wants from you, and then really focusing on that. All right, so questions to ask yourself when defining your audience. So if you're going to build a business or be an influencer on social media, it doesn't matter what your BFF, your mom and dad, or Susan from around the block think about your content. And if you worry about it, you're literally shooting yourself in the foot, okay? So this is just something to keep in mind before you ask yourself questions. If you want to be successful, but you are focused too much on what the people that you went to high school with think about you, that is a massive, massive roadblock, right? So before we dive into the questions, I just want to share a couple examples. And so with that, if you want to be a bikini influencer, since we've used that as an example already in this video, but your neighborhood is used to you posting about your dog Fido, people, they're going to expect you to be what you've always been. So for the last however many years since high school, if Fido is a regular guest on your feed and suddenly you're in a cheeky bikini, the people that follow you might have something to say about it. But at the end of the day, you do not owe them anything. You don't owe them photos of Fido. Your social media is yours. Your brand is yours. Your business is yours. And again, you could be the cutest dog, but there's still people that like cats. And that's the same. You could be the cutest bikini influencer. There's still people that don't care to see it. And that's fine because they are not your audience. And that's what this section is about, defining your audience, knowing that they are not your audience and you don't want to half-ass it. And so essentially, you want to think about success with this as a brand and the audience that you're working with. If you want to be that bikini influencer, but you are half-assing it because you're worried about Susan from around the block saying mean things about you, then look, your feed is going to look like dog photo, bikini photo, maybe from far away, maybe you're covering up, you're a little nervous, you don't really talk about it, you just tag the swimwear brand and dog photo, what you ate for lunch, maybe another bikini photo, you're starting to sneak them in, but you are half-assing it, I'm sorry. And then you want to be this bikini influencer and you reach out to, let's say, Acacia Swimwear, an incredibly beautiful brand, and you're like, hey Acacia, I love your swimsuits, I'd love to work with you, I want to write a blog about your swimsuits, I want to post you in my social media feed. Acacia's gonna look at your content and be like, no, like you are literally just posting photos of your dog. Sure, you have a couple bikini photos in there, but your audience is obviously not engaging with that. You're not committed to actually posting about it. People do not see you as a leader in this section of the industry. So they're not going to take your advice. It's not worth us to invest in you or even send you a free bikini. We could send it to someone else that's more dedicated, right? So if you do want that success, you have to throw what the people you grew up with and their thoughts are right out the window. And eventually they'll come around. So with that, questions to ask yourself while defining your audience. What does your audience care about and why do they need your product? So you'll see that a lot of this has a strong intersection with your brand. And so brand and audience go hand in hand. So what does your audience care about and why do they need your product? Next is, who do you want to attract? And this hits on that Susan around the block little spiel that I just gave. Do you think that she's going to actually buy a swimsuit that you recommend? Maybe. And then what are you worried about with posting about it? She's going to buy it, right? But obviously, if you're worried about what other people or these specific people are going to be saying about you, they are not your audience and they are not your ideal client. So stop half-assing it for them. They're bringing nothing to your life or your business or your brand. You can still be friends with them, but that doesn't mean you have to take their advice for your business. And then with that, who is your dream client to work with, right? What do they enjoy? How is their personality? And what problems or needs do they want solves for, right? So if you are a curvy woman and you love rocking bikinis, just sticking with the bikini analogy, and you know that sometimes curvy women receive flack for that, then maybe your dream client is other women who are ready to step into their individuality, their power, their confidence, and rock those bikinis. So just thinking about who that ideal client really is, and then marketing to that audience. Like I said, you might lose some followers, you might lose some interactions in the beginning, but then it's going to be replaced by an influx of gain that actually fits your target. While we're on this subject, I just want to make note, the best piece of advice I have ever received in regards to business and my own personal brand is to stop taking advice from people that do not have the results that I desire, right? If it's your parents, if it's your best friend, or if it's your neighbor from around the block, if they don't have the results that you desire, stop listening to them. They do not know. It might sound mean, you can be nice, thank them, but do not take what they say to heart in regards to what you are working towards, because if they don't have the results, they're not qualified to talk to you about it, okay? Going deeper, we want to talk about your brand avatar. So this is going to help us really define that target audience. So essentially, our brand avatar, we are creating the person your brand caters to best. Feel free to draw a little stick figure, but it's really helpful to have. So on this note, what is a brand avatar and why are they helpful? So I received this concept years ago when I was working in the retail industry. I worked for a really famous fitness brand globally, and I really liked selling their products and working in their store. It was nice, but what I liked more was the training that they offered. And the biggest takeaway I received from my time with this company was that they used brand avatars to essentially consult every aspect of their business, from marketing and advertisement to product creation to in-store design, everything across the board. They wanted to know if the avatars that they built would approve and actually be interested in this. And this is likely why they are one of the top selling fitness companies in the world. So I'm going to call them Dan and Olivia because of trademark reasons. These are not their avatars' names. But this company has Dan and Olivia, one man and one woman that fit the bill for their fitness industry. And Dan and Olivia have very specific age demographics. They have very specific likes and needs and wants and hobbies and fitness activities and body shapes. They are a certain type of person because at the end of the day, as a business or a brand, you cannot market to everyone. You just can't. There's not a single company in the world that will please every single person. And that's just business, and that's okay. As a company or a brand, it's your job to figure out who you will best work with and who your ideal audience is, and then focus on them first. Focus on building, uplifting, and receiving their support before you begin to branch outward. So with this, and some examples of questions that this company would use, would Dan and Olivia like this? Could this product satisfy one of their needs? Is this relevant to them? And if the answer was no to any questions like this, then it would be canned. It'd be tossed out and readjusted to make sure that it fits Dan and Olivia, because Dan and Olivia are fictional characters that are the ideal audience. They basically are the generalizational representation of their clientele. And so with that, if the answer to any of these questions for your avatar is no, then whatever you're trying to create, sell, or market is just redundant. If you're marketing one thing, but your audience is another, there's no intersection, which means there is no sales, right? So with that, why are they helpful? If Dan and Olivia are your ideal client and they wouldn't like what you're doing, what are you doing? You're not hitting your target mark and your business is resonating with no one. Dan and Olivia, your brand avatar, your fictional character, whether it's 1, 2, 3, however many you want to create to fit your ideal audience, they're helpful because it's personifying the experience before it's actually lived. The experience of marketing that you're sharing, creating, or working towards, you're actually receiving this response. And this, is it fitting a need? Is it landing before you actually invest time and money putting it out there? And that's why a brand avatar is incredibly helpful to have. Perfect. So with that, your brand avatar should be the perfect your brand avatar should be the perfect representational balance between your brand, your audience's needs, right? That's going to create that avatar. So what your brand is, what your audience needs, perfect middle ground is your avatar, and that's where you're going to satisfy the most. So every product, offer, post, and event should satisfy your avatar. This is where you find the intersection of your brand and your audience, the base you can build from to create that strong marketing, right? So everything you do, it needs to pass the test of your avatar before you put it out there. If you don't even think your avatar would like it, then your audience is not going to like it, right? So important qualities and characteristics to identify while building your brand avatar. Some things to keep in mind as you're like playing God and building a little fictional human or two. Just good to remember. And again, you can rehaul and redo your avatar anytime your business goes through a change, adjustment, level up, growth, whatever it is. You don't have to stick with the same avatar. Your avatar can morph over time, but just knowing that that's also your audience. So being aware of that. Age bracket or generation, like we referred to with the skincare regimens, you do need to keep in mind that age bracket or generation. Location, both broad and narrow. Maybe you want city people, but maybe you're a Canadian business, so you want to focus on Canadian cities. Hobbies and what this person enjoys in their free time. Lifestyle, which could be family, education level, partnership, dietary preferences, physical activity level, personal values and beliefs. So to keep in mind, this is non-discriminatory, okay? It is simply to determine the individuals you and your company can most easily relate to. Like we said earlier, there is not a single business on planet Earth that's going to feel good and fit well for everyone. Okay, so instead of wasting others' time, wasting your own time, and wasting anyone's money, including your own, you are best as a brand or business to focus on the people that fit you and your ideal audience. So it's perfectly okay for me to say, my ideal audience as a marketer, as a marketing CEO that has a team of people around the world that are mostly nomadic because I personally travel full time. I wanted a job online that could fund that. My demographic is going to be people generally close to my age, people that have generally a similar lived experience, that also want to travel full time. If I'm marketing to, men or women that are 10 to 15 years older than me, that have children and a house and a mortgage, that's great. That's what they love and that's their dream, but they're not going to be interested in what I have going on, right? So it's literally pointless to try to like convince anyone. Instead, it's best for me to market to other young adults that share my beliefs, my dreams, and my goals. Those are the people I'm going to help most, and that's the audience that's going to be most happy seeing what I have to offer. Right, so just as we start to wrap up, I want to talk about a content creation strategy. So now that we know a bit about our marketing for our niche audience, we know we need to figure out our brand, we know we need to figure out our audience. How do we create content for them, right? So there's a little equation here that I found that's really helpful that allows you to have rotational content so that you're not redundant, you're not boring or annoying anyone, and you're benefiting as many people as possible. So this equation goes like this: brand value summary, so essentially who you are as a business and individual, plus 5 to 10 things you want your audience to know, whether that's like about your product or how it's made or what it's good for, etc., plus 3 to 5 things your audience is interested in, right? So things that they're interested in specifically, even if it doesn't always fall as high as possible on your priority list, what's on their priority list? And that is how you define the content your brand, your company needs, right? So, and the reason behind this formula is to avoid ad fatigue. And an example of this is just showing your audience too much of the same thing that it becomes boring or even annoying. That's the worst case scenario. As a brand, an individual, a company, you do not want to be annoying. That's going to kill your sales. Basically, you want to diversify your content and advertisements by continually hitting a series of rotating marks. This means that, viewers can see following you or engaging with you satisfies one of their needs at least, and there's a clear point there with what you do. But you want to diversify in a way that opens their perspective deeper beyond what they already know or are aware of. A steady rotation of points ensures your audience will see your niche but not feel bored with it, right? You want to be educational. You want to offer solutions and solves for their problems. And you want to be an account, a brand, a business that they enjoy because they gain something from. But if they know that it's going to be the same thing every single day, always, they see your page once and they've seen it all. So what's going to keep them coming back? And this content strategy, brand value summary, 5 to 10 things you want them to know, 3 to 5 things they want to know, equals your rotating content strategy. Awesome. And then that's pretty much it. So this is my Instagram handle, Brooklyn Bosworth. If you guys want to get in touch with me, see more about what I do in my day-to-day or how I personally market my business, especially online, I'd love to connect more and check in with you guys. But that is it. That is marketing for your niche audience. Just keeping in mind that the 2 building blocks are defining your brand and then defining your target audience. And that is going to be where you build from. If you guys have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. You can always find me in the DMs. And I hope this helps you market your individual business, social media, brand, what have you.